Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver and by my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. Today, I'm super jazzed to have the host of Am I the Bolcast, and a writer and like hangouter on the Commander's Herald and EDH Rec and that whole collective, Mike Carrozza. Hey, buddy, thank you so much for joining me. I know we've been talking about this since I was on your show.
Been a minute.
And then I was like, you know what? We should just do this. And like, it's rad because periodically, like, you'll do bits from you because like you're a stand-up in real life. And like periodically you'll throw bits up on like Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever. And I'm like, oh, this dude is funny. Like I enjoy that. So
get a little goofy.
As a fan of comedy, I'm always very happy to see funny things around.
Hell yeah,
especially these days.
I mean, lots to laugh at, I think, right now.
It's a barrel of monkeys, man.
It's real mess, but very funny. As an outsider, we're not scared at all.
You're like, gosh, the tiger that we live next to seems to be getting awfully close to that open door, and this I'm reconsidering this meat suit that I wore to the zoo.
It looked good when I walked out, but now that I think about it,
it's like,
should have worn a hat.
So how are you doing, man? Your show is funny as hell because like I do enjoy the idea of like the premise of it is like, did I do the terrible thing, and like people are defending their terrible decisions, and like I love that idea. Can you tell the people how you got to this?
Yeah, sure. So it's basically there's a popular Reddit subreddit that's Am I the swear word that we've modeled the column after. So Am I the Bolas is people writing in about a story where they wonder whether or not they were in fact the villain, and it was right there the whole time, right? So like when Commander's Herald was starting, I had pitched to EDH Rec a long time ago, but it wasn't a great idea for a column, and Jason was the editor at the time, and he was like, hey, look, I've heard of you, I know you, and I think I'm going to find use for you down the line, but this isn't it. I'm like, awesome, very cool way to reject a person. I'll take it. And then years later, Commander's Herald is coming around, and I get a message from Jason Alt, and I'm like, this guy whose podcast I listen to, this guy whose article about the 75% rule I keep referencing in my play group, this guy is messaging me. What happened? And he's like, hey, okay, I think you'd be perfect for this website. We're kind of we want to have a Magic website where the articles are more about the fun, like the casual elements of Magic, because like it or not, when you involve stats on edhrec.com, you're gonna appeal more to the spikes, to people who are like, I like to know the data. And so Commander's Herald was like, let's get goofy on here. Let's have satire articles. Let's have like a column where it's more about the social element. And we landed on Am I the Bolas?
Because like, EDH Rec can be a little dry. It can, like, I love everybody there. Obviously, I've worked with them for years and years. Architect is one of my sponsors.
Totally.
Big fan, but also there's only so many. It's like, 48% of all Flangle decks are playing this specific card. I'm like, great.
I mean, it helps for, I do think it's a great entry point for people who want to hit the ground running. And I do think that when it comes to tweaking my decks, like I like to go build it first, and then I'll check EDH Rec and see what I missed.
Like I want to go and see what are the obvious things everybody else figured out that I missed. And also like, what is the thematic vibe that you guys landed on versus where I'm going?
My favorite thing is finding out that I'm off the beaten path with the deck build, and that's the like, ooh, look at me, I'm playing jazz, right? So I think EDH rec is definitely like stats based, but it's also like the idea of you're so invested in your deck or in deck building that you're coming to it from a position of what will work best in this position. You want to optimize. Whereas I think the attitude of Commander's Herald from jump was kind of like, this art looks stupid. Let's talk about it, you know? And so Am I the Bolas came about because Jason and I were having a conversation about like, okay, I want you to write for the site. What can you do? And I was like, look, I'm not gonna lie. Like my big thing is like socially, I'm outspoken. I talk a lot. I know social dynamics, and I have noticed in my experience playing Magic with people who play Magic that maybe the social elements are a little lost on some folks, and they could use a safe space to write into and say, hey, did I mess this up? And so people took to it super quick. My inbox was full immediately.
That's funny because I mean, like the thing is, because we've all been there, we've all played the game where you're like, there's a whole full table, and I just cyclonic rift it, or like I bounced everybody's lands, and I didn't have a win con. But if I didn't, I was gonna die. Am I really the bad guy here? I mean, like, look, dude, like. Or you could have run a counterspell at any point in time.
There we go. So it's just kind of like that element of it where it's like, I want to help the people who leave a game night and go take like a night shower. You ever get home and you're like, I need a shower now, and you get in the shower and you're kind of just like, your podcast that's playing, you can't even hear it. It's just a low muffle at this point because you're just thinking about, man, did I really mess that up so bad? Are those guys going to want to play with me the next time I show up?
That's Dear what Bolas, the columns I started turn 1 with a Soul Ring into a Monovault into a Lotus Petal into a Trinisphere. Am I really the bad guy? Nobody wants to play with me anymore, and I don't understand. Like, I just had 4 stacks pieces by turn 2. It's not that bad. Like,
and I shuffled my deck so they're always at the top. I marked them and nobody seems to notice. Is that a problem for anybody?
It's like,
and we have to deliberate.
I just put some fingernail marks in the corner to make sure that I had all my lands. It's like, come on, it's not that.
Get all the
Urzas.
Right? Yeah, I think that what's fun about doing the podcast, because you brought up the podcast, which is Am I the Bolcast? Real original. Take the column of the name of the column and then throw on cast on it. Am I the Bolcast? We pivoted away from just stories of where you're the villain, or maybe, and turned it into like, what's your Magic pet peeve? Because we're talking to people who are around the game a lot, and so maybe sometimes the villain stories don't come as easy, or they become a little bit like less interesting because like, oh, I know I was the villain, so here's my story of when I was the villain, and we don't really get a discussion out of that. We do the pet peeves because it's like, what don't you like about Magic in Commander specifically? So we come from a negative point right away, but then we go, let's unpack it, because then we're going to come to what you do like, and there's a spectrum now. What do we like? What do we tolerate? What do we appreciate? And how do we find a new way to appreciate the thing that we don't like, or at least respect it, right? So that's the fun part of it, is when you can find the juice of that conversation with a guest, where you're like, I don't like, I hate when people play white against me. It's like, okay, well, this is huge, right? Like, let's discuss this, Davey, And so we get into it and we find out white's pretty heavy on removal and she likes a battle cruisy experience, and then we find out, well, white's got a lot of battle cruisy elements to it that you can use to your advantage. So yeah, I think that's the fun part about doing the podcast. It's just like, people will come in, they'll either have a story or an opinion that like gets
so you're like a psychologist then, instead of like a letters advice column.
Hey, yeah, I did a theater degree but came out with a doctorate.
It's like, let's work through this together. Now, here's a plane. Show me where it reminds you of your mother. It's like, what?
I see you chose the lightning cloud planes. Is that for a particular reason?
I don't know, dude. It's like that. I think there's so many people who will just sit down. One of the things that when we were working on Commander in the CAG and in the RC, one of the like discussions that would come up with the rules committee a lot is the understanding that Commander is a social format, and social formats have social problems that require social responses and not rules responses. You cannot
Yes.
like litigate your way to having a good time, right? Like
Yeah.
it's and the problem is Magic players by and large, for which is weird for a game that is tabletop and that involves a lot of politicking and talking. We're not good at politicking and talking, and like actually like talking to each other on a human level, being like, "Hey, so because like when Rule Zero came out, the idea was just kind of like, hey, sit down and be like, yo, I think I've got a pretty strong deck. Oh, okay, let me
Mhm.
pull out my pretty strong deck. That's what it
There
was
we go.
supposed to be. And not like,
Exactly.
let me read you the manifesto of everything my deck does and everything that you play that I really refuse to play against. And I
Mhm.
choose, if you drop a single sandworm, then I am going to be out forever because I had a traumatic experience in Tunisia when I was a kid. I'm like, what the hell? No. Do you have a good deck, an okay deck, or a bad deck?
Yeah.
I have good decks, okay decks, and bad decks too. Let me pull
Yeah.
one out. It's like it's whatever. But
I do think that the language around that evolving so much is fascinating because it does speak to the point that like design has gotten so good and so they've gotten so prolific with how much product that they're putting out, how many interesting things that they're doing with design that people are kind of the vocabulary for expressing what kind of experience that you want is now there. And you have so much happening that you can't just be like, oh, I have a good deck and then go, okay, so that means you're playing these three commanders or you're only
yeah.
using this one for colors, right? So it's like it's one of those things where like remember when the Nephilim were
Yeah.
the poster children for four color? You didn't have
Yeah.
any options for four color, remember?
Those are
And
the
it was
good old
so
days.
cool to show up and be like, "Hey, I built this deck. It is technically four colors and I have Child of Alara as a backup for the command zone, but really your Tiller
Yeah.
Nephilim is the
Your
commander.
tiller.
Would you mind if I played your Tiller Nephilim instead of Child
Right.
of Alara?" And they're like, "Yes, actually, I think that would be very good. Please and thank you. Please do not play the child." Um,
Yeah. Child of Alara, your tiller Nephilim. Right? Like, or freaking who the Corona, the false god, right? Like those
yep,
were the
that
kind of your
was a
choices back then.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like your tiller Nephilim is like the most innocent card on the. But yes, that's exactly it. That's like I think that people got so caught up in the granularity of the
Mm,
discussion of and like the feelings and stuff. I'm like, no, it's not about the feelings and granularity. It's just meant to be like, hey, dude, if we're going to be spending the next X amount of hours together, I would like both of us to have a good time. And that
I would
means to
like
make sure
both
that
of us to
you and
have a
I know
good
what game
time.
we're playing.
Yes. The underlying subtext of all Rule Zero conversations should be I want all of us, we say both because it's just us right now, but usually
Yeah,
four players.
right.
I want all of us to have a good time. I want us all to have a good time. Like discounting the fact that Magic is a game of conflict and war, right? So like
Yeah,
at
but
some points
like
we're not going to be happy about something's happening, but good times can happen regardless, right?
right, but there's a you can have conflict and war where both sides are relatively on even footing, or
Mm-hmm.
you can have one pikeman versus your Abrams tank, and who's going to win, right? Like it's not going to be the piker,
I don't know. That's
and
a pretty crafty pikeman. You're pretty crafty.
like in Chicago, I had some games where I
Mm-hmm.
was playing against also a fellow creator, Ben Bateman, dear friend of mine, and he wanted to
Nice.
show off his like pet deck, his super bling deck, his storm off deck, and I'm like, the two decks I
Okay.
have are my Nira goof off deck, which does nothing until like turn 7,
Mm-hmm.
or my like Sahili precon. Because I hadn't gone back to the hotel
Oh
to actually
wow.
pick up some real decks. So I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna drop the precon and the other people are playing whatever they're playing. And I held my own, but I was definitely not like winning that game. But because we were like, look, we went in understanding that there's an imbalance here, it was fine. Nobody pulled
Totally.
punches, but we all like were like, okay, I'm not going to target you because I know that you're playing tapped mana base. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, you can
Yeah.
have a minute. We'll be back. Um, it's just about like people act like people get so mad when I say stuff like that. Like, hey, if you have the win con and the other person's been sitting there and like, or rather, let's say that the other player has been building a combo up and they've been talking about it. They built this whole deck to do this one combo. It takes
Mm-hmm.
like 4 cards. It's really complicated, but if it goes off, it's like
Mm-hmm.
the only thing they've been thinking about forever. This is the one thing.
Yeah.
And you have the disruptor in your hand that will just stop their combo. And you're like, look, you do this and you win the game. And they do that and they're probably going to win or they might not. But Like, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna hold that card because I want to see the jubilation when that stupid engine pops off. And so many people are like, how dare you? You are holding back, you're pulling your punches, you're insulting the integrity of my game by, and I'm like, no, dude, I've watched you build this stupid deck for months trying to talk only about this one combo. You finally have all the pieces. I'm not going to be the one to pull the rug out. Come on. Like, I like watching you pop off and celebrate and then just like putting my deck away and shuffling up and do it again. That's a win. Like, come on.
Yes, exactly. You look, if you need to categorize it and like catalog it away as like a win for yourself if you need to. But like, I think the bigger win is exactly what you're saying. Hey, we got to see the thing happen. I've sandbagged so many counter spells in the name of having a better time for it. Like, you know, I don't play a lot of blue, let's say. I don't play a lot of I don't play you know what? I won't say I don't play any counter spells because I'm pretty sure I have one or two decks that have a couple. But
look, even my decks have at least one counter spell because you always need to protect your thing.
Something like that, at least. So, well, okay. So I do run. I have Rassilin, the War President, which is at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library and lose 2 life, and then cards you cast from exile have conspire. And so the idea is that you can cast those cards for as long as they're in exile. So I have a couple counter spells that I've never had to cast just because I've exiled them with Rassilin, and the threat is just there. And that to me is kind of funny because I have no designs on casting that counter spell, if I'm being real. You know, or sometimes I'll just be like, okay, guys, I'm going to play the Jwari Disruption as a land. Enjoy not tiptoeing anymore. All I've got is a Bitter Blossom anyway. So
yeah, it's like the counters I play are things like Arcane Denial, where it's like, look, you're getting cards anyways, chill. Or like, you know, Didn't Say Please, which is just like silly and funny, right? Like, it's just like, whatever, dude. Like, there are ways to play a game without having to be a jackal about it. It's just about, hey, can you also be a human at the same time? Can you also respect, because like, unless you're playing CDH at a tournament, we're not playing for prizes. You know,
what are you really there for? Come on,
what are we here to do? What are we here to do? But yeah, so how we should pull back a step before I start ranting like for another 20 minutes.
I'm about it. That's what I'm here for.
I don't know. Yeah, am I the Bolas for sandbagging cards? No.
You know what? This has come up a couple times in the column. Some people have written in and I say, you know what? Did you guys have fun? No. One of my favorite concepts that's kind of come to me in writing the column and doing the podcast is this idea of like confrontation doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing. It's just the idea of encouraging people to vocalize themselves, and to confront somebody on something doesn't always mean that it's going to lead to something negative. The idea that I want to plant this seed that conversations will open to more possibilities, right? So if you're going to have somebody go, yeah, well, I mean, you sandbagged your thing and that's insulting to me. You get to go, I didn't realize that that's how you feel about it. I can promise that in your case, I won't pull any punches next time with a counter spell. But what I will say is part of that for me, I enjoyed seeing what your cards do. I got some enjoyment out of your joy. And so for you to think that it wasn't that does take away from my joy. So next time I can adapt. But you see, this is like a civil conversation between people who are saying exactly how they feel and how to improve on it.
Right. And also, you don't need to tell them. You don't need to show them your hand. You can just be like, man, you had it, and shuffle and call it a day.
Yeah.
But
I mean, one of my favorite pet peeves that came on was MTG Mudsta said his pet peeve is sore losers, or people who go, I would have won the next turn and then show their hand at the end. And that to me is in the similar spirit of being like, you know, unless it's open information, why do you know, muck that counter spell, you know, like use a poker term, you know.
You know what? Unless it would have been funny, or you had like the combo that you were building up, then it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But it's like, come on, man, just chill, let it go. But it's funny because like sometimes I've had conversations with people who've been trying to argue about Iona, trying to unban Iona, and I'm just like, okay, you're sitting at a table, and there's 3 other players, one person is playing mono white, the other person is playing white green, the other person is playing green black, or like mono red, red green, and like red black, and then you're playing like white X, white blue, or something. Mm-hmm. Do you drop that Iona? Are you naming green because it's the color at all those tables or whatever? And they're like, yeah, of course. It's like, and so you're going to lock that one green player completely out of the game? It's like, well, they should be running. And like, this is the argument I've literally been given, which is like, oh yeah, well, they should have been running some colorless removal spells. I'm like,
yeah,
homie,
come on now,
homie.
Oh,
really?
My unstable obelisk, it was 7th from the bottom, buddy.
Yeah, like
I packed the heat for you and it didn't come up. Or better yet, it got countered.
right, exactly that. Or like I play it and then you drop the friggin' disenchant that's also in your hands. Like, you know what? I sit there and I'm like, any card that says somebody doesn't get to play, like full stop doesn't get to play, is not. It's not okay. Anyways,
I'm with you. I do agree with that. Yeah. I don't mind stacks though, because stacks is like a hurdle. That's a new challenge.
It depends. Like I don't mind stacks, like especially things like playing a Thalia or playing the like obedience or whatever, the one that makes you all your creatures come into play tapped.
Blind obedience. Yeah,
blind obedience, etc. Like that kind of stacksy stuff. I don't mind. I mind things like, and I don't even mind a Blood Moon coming out of a mono red deck because I get it. You're like, this is the only way I can win. But like when it's straight up, you've got nothing to do and no choices to make. That's just like, then what are we here for? Like you win, good.
Yeah,
I guess.
Okay, we got to wait for you to draw the thing for you to win while we're here. Yeah. Oh, you're not even gonna attack with Iona? You're not even gonna attack with her?
Come on, man. Like I played against a dude once who had a Carrozza deck. And it was a green-white god from Theros block. And basically the deck was a lot of like land fetching and flipping your thing over. And basically he casts like a silence or something that stops everybody from doing anything. And then sits there for 45 minutes going through the loops trying to get the little thing. And I'm like,
no chance.
No, this is not. And we were too polite to concede because we were all kind of rooming together. And I was like, I don't want to insult you, but I'm like, and I'm
playing
Words with a Friend on my phone. Huh?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. Rooming together?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a dynamic that's hard to navigate when you're in.
Or like a fan comes up to you and plays like a turbo lock deck, and you're like, ugh. They're like, I just wanted to show you. I want to prove to you that this is good. I'm like,
I think it's the concept of beating your favorite content creator is so funny to me because if anybody, and I'll put this out there, if anybody wants to play against me, go. I'm excited to. I can't wait. Let's play a game. And if you're like, oh, I can't wait to beat Mike, let me tell you something. You will. It's easy.
It is not hard.
I don't win often. It's like I don't know what to tell you. I'm gonna spin my wheels for a little bit, and then you're gonna be like, okay, well, I'm gonna kill the thing.
One of the things is sometimes they come in with like these 9s or whatever, and I'm just like, bro, you know that my brand is casual. Like, yeah, okay,
you're a fan, but you should know.
Like, yeah, it's like my strongest deck on the brand new scale that we use is like a 4. Like maybe a 3.5, not a 4. Like it's a 3+.
A 3+. Okay,
Anyways,
like that.
But like that's like my it's gonna be bad, and they're like, really? Like, look, man, I live in the 1s and 2s. Okay, so when I'm up here, this is like pushing it for me. I'm playing Gaia's Cradle to cast Juggernauts. What do you want me to do?
See, that I can get behind. You do that at a table I'm at, I will look at you and go, you love this game.
Let me tell you the most psych out start I've ever had against somebody. So I play a dual land. I play a Tundra. I drop my Tundra, I tap it to play a Beta Soul Ring. Tap the Beta Soul Ring to play a revised Mono Vault. Tap the Mono Vault and the Soul Ring to play a revised Juggernaut. And they're sitting there like, you used a $10,000 mana base to play a quarter. And I'm like, I sure did. And it's like, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, lightning bolts? And I'm like, I guess you did.
You're like, yeah, next turn it has to attack, so no hard feelings. Wait a second, did you just kill it? No.
Oh, no. I was like, oh, wait, you have a 3/1? What am I going to do? Yeah.
A 3-1. Wait, hold on a second. A 3-1 with first strike when it isn't your turn.
Oh
Did this come out in
no!
2024? Okay,
I
that
can't beat
makes
you.
sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about you for a second, though, because
Yeah.
I don't know why I've been talking about me, because this show has got 260 episodes of me. You don't need more me. Um, but so you live in Montreal, but you're not French Canadian. Is that allowed?
So technically speaking, anybody living here, that's French Canadian, right? Like I'm born and
Oh, I
raised in
guess so.
Montreal. I'm Quebecois, right? So I'm not French Canadian. I'm Quebecois. Born and raised in
Mm,
Montreal. I went to French high school and everything. Like I have a it's crazy that we're talking about this week. Literally this week I had my first ever viral moment because of a joke I do about the Quebecois accent. And
I
most
love
of
the
the
Quebecois accent.
it's my favorite thing in the world. It really is, truly. It's I love the accent so much. It has been used like I was bullied in high school by kids who realized I couldn't speak French, so they tried speaking to me in English with that accent. But then it's also like the kindest people I've ever met in my life have all been so accommodating when I didn't quite get it. And then I learned how to speak French. And then, my girlfriend doesn't speak French, so they're trying to speak to her in English. And it's just such a nice it's a great accent from people who are trying to be as accommodating and open as possible. And when they don't know English, it doesn't matter. They're doing their best and it rules. And it's the most charming accent in Canada, hands down, no doubt about it. And I live for it. But I had a clip go nuts, and most people are like, that's exactly how I sound. I feel better now that you're saying that it's charming and you like it. That means I feel less afraid to speak English now. But then the other half are people are like, oh yeah, well you try to speak in French then, jerk. How about that? Huh? You ever think about
And
that?
you're like, Je
Yeah, check.
suis.
Yeah, I'd be like, checkmate, buddy. Here I go, and then I write back to them in French like, I did all my schooling in French and I'm just doing a joke like a comedian does. Like I wrote this to be funny. I'm sorry I lied to you, stranger I've never met. Do you really need everything at face value? Here comes the
I,
airplane spoon, Like I don't know what to tell you.
it's funny. I took French in grammar school, and I learned it, and I can read it because I was an English major in college, and I can
Oh,
read
yeah.
it, and I can read scholarly texts and novels and things in French, whatever. If I try to speak it, literally all I remember is "Quel temps fait-il aujourd'hui?" What is the weather like outside?
Yeah,
It's,
totally. It's
yeah, that's kind of it.
honestly, the
Like I
French
have 12
is
languages, man.
it's here's the thing about French though, man. It's like a little bit in high school they made us take Latin
yeah,
because the base of every romantic language is Latin. So
yeah.
I learned Latin, I learned French, and English is so much harder to learn because you don't have any vines to grasp onto. You're just kind of memorizing it. French borrows from a couple language systems, and then you're like, okay, hey, that Portuguese person needs help. They're saying these words, and I'm like, wait, I don't speak Portuguese. How do I know that? You're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's another romantic language. Italian. I don't speak Italian fluently, but it definitely helped to be able to understand my grandfather, who sometimes would refuse to speak to me in English or French,
Yeah.
and I would
That's the thing.
understand.
I can speak Spanish with pretty fluently. I can get away with speaking Spanish pretty well because I live in
Oh
an
yeah.
area where Spanish is one of the primary languages. But because of that, when I was in Italy, I had a very easy time getting around because I could figure out what was going on. I could hear everything. In
Hmm.
France, I might not be able to understand when they talk because they cut off 38 of the letters at the end.
That's
And
fair.
and then like the word for ovens is fours when you spell it out, but when you say it's faux, and you're like, come on, man.
Yeah,
Come on.
you're
Or foo or
they're
something.
they're banking on because there's a couple sounds that we don't use in English or in a couple languages, right? You've got kind of the growling R, like four
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
oven, but the end is r, right? So you're four.
Yeah.
It's yeah, there's some sounds that you realize some people don't know how to do. Like my girlfriend is learning French. We've been living here
Right.
for a little bit. She's learning French slowly but surely. She's not taking any formal courses. It's just kind of what she picks up. And some sounds are not easy because in English we just don't use them.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
that's a lot of how I learned Japanese by going to school teaches you a lot, but when you're waiting in line at the bank and have to withdraw money, you learn Japanese
Hmm.
real quick,
Hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
You learn the actual used language instead of just where is the discotheque,
Yeah.
but but that's That's kind of, I didn't think any, like, I mean, I don't mean to harp on this, but like,
Sure.
you don't speak French in Quebec? Is that like, I thought I mean, the stereotype is that obviously Quebec people speak French primarily. Like, has that not
Right.
been a challenge?
So Montreal is a college city and also a
Right. And it's
haven for
also a
artists.
cosmopolitan town. So,
Exactly. So you've got a lot of folks who like never learned French or, moved here from elsewhere and figured they'd pick it up as they go. Or, they came here for college, never had to learn French or anything and decided they love it here and they stuck around. So they pick up a little bit. Elsewhere in Quebec, if you don't speak French, it's not going to go great for you. Like there's some small towns, sure, that are like, there's a town south of here called Howick, where my buddy Abby's from, where they don't speak French at all. They just like are a small English town in Quebec. But Quebec City is a tourist town, so they've adapted a lot more English. But we went to Rivière-du-Loup in last spring, and it was beautiful and stuff. But like, I had to do a lot of the talking to people because they were like, "Huh, what?" Like, okay,
well,
no,
yeah,
that's
like
fine.
when
I'll
you're in a
switch
small
with them.
town, obviously, like they're not going to waste their time learning English.
Oh,
Like
I mean, why do they need it?
I listen to a lot of French music, and because I like, I don't know, international songs and stuff, and like a lot of like I end up listening to like most of the cool like French pop and stuff ends up coming from like Quebec or Montreal just because it's like
Yeah.
here. Uh, but yeah, I
It's
don't
a
know.
massively the city's got a lot going on for it creatively. It used to be, so I mean obviously everywhere in the world housing is a problem right now. Montreal used to be the cheapest city in the country and now like, well, not the cheapest city, but like the cheapest city you'd want to live in out of like all the
Mm,
top cities. And now it's
yeah,
kind of gotten higher and higher and it's difficult to even consider like, it's the same thing that happened in New York, right? New York, it was a creative mecca, a lot of stuff happening there, pop culture, artists, all this stuff. And then, a lot of that stuff
they
is
get
getting
priced out
raised
because it's
for
cool, and the rich people want to live where it's cool.
exactly. They want to live where it's cool so they can consume some more without providing anything. And that's the bummer. Anyway.
Bring your mic a little closer, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. I can do it right here.
Yeah, because like you not that close, but yeah, it's like you've been kind of fading a smidge, and I'm like, okay, but
Yeah, I'll take it.
no worries. But the thing is, like, the reason I'm asking this is because
Mhm.
you're a stand-up comic. Is
Yeah.
it not hard to be doing stand-up comedy in the other language?
So I grew up speaking English. Like my family is what we
Yeah,
call like an anglophone family, right? So we spoke
right.
English. My dad is from Italy. He immigrated here when he was a kid. Was forced through the French system, and that's the only reason he really knows French, right? He like
Mm,
couldn't go to English schools and stuff, and then grew up and so
yeah,
he's always been like having as many languages under your belt is very important. So when it came to choosing a high school, I chose a French one. My brother and I went to a French high school, but a lot of our friends like they never went to learn French formally, and they're doing what they can, or like they're doing fine, but it's Montreal within,
yeah.
they're navigating just fine because it's Montreal, and you can be an anglophone out here, but you're definitely a minority. It's weird to describe myself as a minority because it is like a language minority, and in every
I mean,
other sense, I am the most privileged guy. You know what I mean?
but I mean that's
Um,
true. Like in India, and so my parents when they came to America, both of them spoke 4 or 5 languages already, just because the way that the neighboring states and stuff are. And so, like after partition, when India got split up into pieces, Pakistan, India, and everything, there was a state next to my state. My state's from called Gujarat, which is on the western point of India, and
type.
just above it there was a state called Sindh. Sindh went and became part of Pakistan, but all the Hindu Sindhis had to leave, and they all left to go to Gujarat, and because like our languages are kind of similar, our cultures are kind of similar,
Uh
but
huh.
they are basically indistinguishable from Gujarati people, but they're a linguistic minority in the state because they at home speak Sindhi, and in public they have to speak Gujarati and act like everybody else. And so yeah,
Okay.
I know exactly what it's like to deal with like feeling like it's weird feeling when you're just like you feel like you're a minority even though you literally look and sound and act like everybody else
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because you're like got this one hidden thing that's like
Uh huh.
off. But it's like,
Exactly. And
like if somebody from like the Czech Republic comes out here, right? And they're like,
right.
I look like a privileged white guy,
Uh
but
huh.
I do not speak privileged white guy.
Right. I do. I mean, it does speak to the fact that, like, again, the clip that took off this week, like,
Yeah.
a lot of the responses being like, "Hey, how about you try that in French?" Like what do you? I'm trying not to swear.
Yeah, right.
It's difficult, but
Meaning.
that said, it's like I grew up here as an Anglophone, and I did my schooling in French, and college in English again, and all that stuff. But like being from Montreal is like I wanted to do comedy since I was a kid, just always
Mm,
known. And even as a kid, I would host the events at school, right? So I was always like the host for elementary school concerts. I was the host at my
mm.
like elementary school graduation, talent shows in high school, all that stuff. And I knew
Sure.
that I like had no fear of an audience. That was just like my happy place for very early on. And
Mm.
I've always wanted it, and I always thought, well, I'm gonna move to Chicago and then get cast on SNL or something, and that was the goal for many, many years. And then you find out about visas and the legalities of having to work in the United States, whereas you find out year after year that comedians from the States get to perform down here by being like, hey, what are you coming down here to do? And you're like, oh, I'm going to perform comedy. And the Canadian border guards go, get in here, that's kind of fun. Oh wait, I already let you in, but you're supposed to pay $40 for a visa. We'll get you next time. Meanwhile, if I come down there without an O1 visa, which costs 15 grand before even finding out you got the visa, and perform comedy, that's not good for me. I'm not allowed.
That's
Um,
You need a
so
work visa to do comedy?
oh yeah, because it's not classified within other visas. It is you have to basically stand out as an in these exact words, an alien of extraordinary ability. So you need an O1 visa. I know. I know. So it's the same visa that like I guess Elon Musk bought his way into. Um
Jeez.
it's oh no, maybe he got the easier visa cuz he was in business already, you know.
But
Um
okay, well, that being said, though, there are definitely like like there's some pretty mega comedy shows up there.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah. We still have Just for Laughs, which is the biggest
yeah,
comedy festival in the world, and
exactly.
there's lots of great cities that to do comedy. But the thing about Canada is that it's way more spaced out than you think it is. So like, if I have to go to Winnipeg, if that's a train ride, that's 14 hours, buddy. There's no way around it. That flight is way longer than you think it's going to be, and it's going to cost triple what you would think it's going to be. And then meanwhile in the States, you can rent a car and do a nice little run in the Midwest and pay for your next 2 months of like living expenses and fun stuff, Canada doesn't have that kind of infrastructure. Canada doesn't have like the cities in between that'll come out for comedy the way that America does. And
Mm.
American audiences love comedy. Like American audiences, like oh my god, they respect it so much. They come out after a show, they'll be like, that was so good, do you have any merch? And you're like, no, I don't. They're like, can I give you money? And I'm like, no, you can't. But they want to, they really want to. Whereas Canadians as a culture, like I was speaking to a band, I'm not gonna name drop them here, but they're doing well. They're a big punk band. They're doing well. They tour all over the world. And I
Mm.
asked them point blank while we were just hanging out in Toronto, like, hey, when you're hitting the road, how much merch do you bring with you in all these different areas? They're like, okay, the States, we bring everything we have, plus we have stuff
Mhm.
printed to pick up in certain key cities. We plan it with somebody who's like an expert in this stuff, and we get it done. We basically make enough for our year to do this. I'm like, sick, tight, awesome, love that. How about like Europe? Europe, we take about like a third of what we would take to America, but that's mostly because of shipping. We probably have a couple things printed out there for doing a large UK run, but ultimately we kind of keep it a little bit more condensed. What about Asia?
Mm.
Usually it's just Japan. You got a couple of cities there. We have stuff printed there, or we'll bring like maybe
Yeah.
a quarter of our stuff if we can afford to. How about Canada? Canada, we bring like I don't know 20% of our inventory if we think it'll go.
Just people don't buy things I mean, like, buying things at shows in the States is like a
Uh huh.
ritual that you do. It's like part of you walk in and on the way out the door, you buy the shirt or you buy the
Hmm.
sticker or you buy the whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like, I guess it's almost like it feels like not tipping at a restaurant, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're from a culture where you like other cultures, like, oh yeah, why would we pay their company pays them to work? Why are we paying them more? And in the States, it's kind of like, you didn't buy a T-shirt when you left the show?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, like, I'm not saying everybody does, but I'm just saying the merch is almost always gone at the end of most shows. If the band was good or if the dude was funny or whatever, then it's like,
yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
know.
In the States, absolutely. But I've had to stand with my friends in front of the comedy club a couple times to deal with merch, and the experience is different on the American side than it is on the
Oh yeah.
Canadian side. I'll tell you that
And I mean,
much.
like, to be fair, I've been to like smaller metal shows or whatever where like,
Mhm.
yeah, they'll sell one T-shirt all night and they'll just kind of be hanging out. But that's because, you know, you go in with the expectations and you understand what's going on. But like, merch is where you make your money.
A lot of the time. Yeah, especially nowadays with concert venues having to do this like buyout for, like not only are you renting the space or having to rent, like, work with their own sound techs or anything that you don't travel with, but you also have to give them a merch cut, which is absurd. So you have to like
Yeah.
make sure you're selling a ton of merch to cover that cut, and then you're buying a table from them. It's a whole mess. America loves to extract. It's a and that's a thing it loves to do to other industries everywhere else too, as much as possible.
It is what we are good at doing. But it's like, because I remember like when some of my friends are getting started in comedy and stuff, and they've got like, oh, you have to go bring your friends to come to our show, and they have to buy 2 drinks each, or and I'm like, that seems like couldn't you just go to your friend's house and do the gig instead?
There it
How are we
is.
benefiting from this?
So you're not benefiting. It's your friend who's doing the comedy who sort of benefits here, because that's called a bringer show. And if people start thinking that, like, oh, you can bring an audience, then the producer doesn't have as much work to do, and they're not paying you anything because it's a bringer show. Why would they pay you anything?
Yeah, right.
And so so they're just like, great, we have an audience, they paid for this stuff, our money's good, and their friend gets to do 5 minutes, and we'll book them on another thing, and hopefully they do it again. And eventually you stop doing it because your friends are burnt out on coming to see you do very bad jokes. Which, advice to any comics out there starting out: don't invite your friends. Don't do as many non-bringer shows as possible. You are better off dropping your name in the bucket of an open mic to see if you maybe go up at 3 a.m. in front of two people who are also there waiting for their names to be pulled, than you are to doing a bringer show at one of these venues that doesn't respect you at all. Get good, get noticed, get up there. That's all it is.
Yeah. And like, open mics are a rough crowd sometimes. I mean, it's like, but you got to practice. You've got to practice somewhere. You've got to figure out how, like, if you cannot make them laugh in 2 minutes, they're certainly not going to laugh in 2 hours, right? So
That's right.
like,
That's
you
right.
joke. I don't know. I love comedy, so I watch a lot. I pay attention to a lot of it just because I enjoy. I like laughing. Like,
who are some of your favorites? Who do you like a lot?
For me, my absolute favorites are 1980s era Eddie Murphy.
Okay,
Who is like
all right.
god tier comic, like,
I'll do a little for us. And then you insert a long bleep.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, like, let's say some of those jokes are maybe not 2025 worthy, but
oh yeah,
the dude makes me laugh till I cry. Or like, in the 80s, there were a lot of people who used to do like one-liners. Like, shows of dudes who do one-liners are literally my favorite comics in the world, just because like they're so good. Like, like Bob Saget. If you ever watch early Bob Saget shows when he was filthy, it was just like, oh my god, this dude's. It's just like they very much catch you off guard, and then you're just like dying, and it is so good.
My favorite from that era has got to be Wendy Liebman. That fits this archetype of like one-liners. Always tight jokes, no fat on them whatsoever. Will take you to the edge and then twist. And you don't know where it's going. Such an incredible writer, and still doing it, still hustling. So funny, incredibly talented.
Who do you like to listen to?
I think
or
I'm all over
what
the
made
map.
you want to get into comedy? Who were the people the Mark Maron question, right? Like, who are your guys?
Yeah. Who are my guys? Who got me into comedy is a tougher question to answer, because like when I was a kid, being in Montreal, like you watch the news and then immediately it's like, okay, what's between the 8 o'clock show and the news? Well, let's put up some Just for Laughs galas there, so you've got like these people who are already famous or not, or just about to blow up. Like I have somewhere in my parents' attic an old math notebook where I've written down Mike Birbiglia and Bill Burr's name and Maria Bamford.
They're so good.
just from a gala being like, I was watching this as a kid, distracted from my homework, being like, I want to see if I can find these guys somewhere. Maybe they have a book or a CD, and I used to watch that. And so like early on, these are my people, right? So like these are the people that I'm watching because they're served up to me that way. But when it came to finding comics I like, Andy Kindler was a huge one for me. Doug Benson is a big reason I started stand up. Kyle Kinane is my favorite comic.
He's
Um,
funny.
he's hilarious. He's one of my favorite people in the entire world. He hates when I compliment him too much, and it is what it is, buddy. It's not going to stop. He's in Scotland right now, and every time every time I think about him going to Scotland, I'm like, this castle doesn't have any Wi-Fi, and I'm just it's unbelievable.
You know who's really funny these days that I enjoy a lot in the modern era? There's this Scottish dude named Alistair Beckett King. Maybe he's British, I don't know, but he's got like long red hair, and he's on YouTube a lot doing like, he does a lot of really short form videos. He's got really funny stand up, but like his videos are things like, a 2-minute long sketch of like every Danish or like every Scandinavian crime show you've ever seen, or like every sci-fi show and it's just this like utterly hilarious take on the pastiche of like this. He's like, it's like, there's a murderer here in the city. There could be 7 people. It's like, oh my god, what? And it just he's hella funny, and I love that sort of thing.
I've taken down his name so I can check him out later. I've never heard of him. That's the most exciting thing. Like hearing about people you don't know. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. I love that. That's part of why I like doing the show, is learning about people I haven't heard of, who I would have no reason to be exposed to, and then be like, oh, I'm going to delve into this at first, and it's going to be amazing.
Oh yeah.
How'd you get magic?
Oh, I mean,
the same way the rest of us did.
Yeah, exactly. I was let's see. I think I was like 8 or 9, and we went to the video store, and I saw a pack of like a booster pack of magic cards in the they had like these glass displays that they turn around, and it's kind of like a vending machine where you have to get a teenager from behind the counter to get a key to open it up and sell you the thing. And I saw it, and I asked my parents about it, and they were like, look, we have to read up on it before we, not yet, but maybe. And eventually they got me the 7th edition starter thing with the CD that taught you how to play it, and then was like, do you want to be on Magic Online? And I'm like, I'm not allowed. And then so I would play that tutorial so many times, and then eventually I like lent it to a friend of mine at school. He lent it to another friend, and then we were like 4 of us who got really into Magic, and we're like, how do we play with each other? And we found starter decks. So I got the green one, my buddy got the black one, another friend got the red one. Red one won every time. It was just too fast for all of us.
I mean, they don't call it red deck wins for nothing.
Exactly. Just a bunch of burn spells and hasty goblins. It just like slammed. And yeah, that's how I got into it. Like, I was the only one that stuck with it early on because I just really liked what I loved about Magic. And I guess this is something that I identified in myself that I really liked about myself early on, which is like, I loved reading a card being like, I don't know that word, time to go look that up. I don't know that word, time to go look that up. And I found it like, I think that's why my parents didn't mind it so like early on, because they were like, hey, this you're learning words. This is kind of like you're learning a fun way for you to learn. We're going to encourage it. My cousin had Magic cards, so he gave me those, a couple dual lands and a bunch of other stuff. And
oh jeez.
Yeah, well, that's the tough part, is like you're in high school and you start getting bullied for being a nerd. You're like, well, I guess I'll sell this stuff because it's worth $30 or something. Yeah, I know. Yep.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
All been there. And then I came back to it, and I don't know when. I came in and out a few times, but then, I think it was like 2013. I was like, nah, I'm back. I bought that Derevi deck, the pre-con. Then I did a festival in Seattle, and somebody there was like, I was at the store, they got Magic cards. I was like, if you buy one, I'll buy one. We could play. And it's like, okay. And so I bought the mono blue Teferi deck, and got absolutely wiped by the mono white deck, the Nahiri deck.
Because that's the deck that ended up being the basis of my Tajik deck, which is that deck rules. And the Teferi deck is just a real, like, the Teferi deck is good if you have 4 people. If you have 2 people, you're getting your ass kicked. It's like,
you mean your 6-mana commander won't do, like your deck that's built to like stave off one attack at a time instead of multiple? Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's so weird. Like, everybody's got the same story of like, oh yeah, well, I was a nerd and I was 15 and it was D&D or Magic, and Magic is easier to carry, so Magic. And I'm like, reasonable and fair.
Sure.
Reasonable and fair, man. But like, did you ever try playing with like French cards? Because I know they have those in Quebec.
So I got a couple of them, but never took to them. I never really like. To me, it's like French is just kind of there. Like, there's an element of, you're an Anglophone, you're going to school, you start getting bullied for being English.
Yeah, sorry to harp on this. I'm just a linguist nerd, so this is like my favorite thing to talk about.
It's fine. This is what the podcast is about. You're talking to me about me. I'll tell you everything. What if I was like, no, Shivam, can you cut everything I've said about the language now? I could never. It's so big.
We would have a 3-minute long.
It would be, honestly. It is such a big part of who I am, right? Like, the thing is, I grew up kind of resenting having to learn French, because in elementary school, French was taught to us, like in French immersion, you kind of learned a little bit early on, and that you just lose it so quick, because when you're at that level where they kind of don't need you, like, you don't need to do so much in French, or not everything is in French, or your French class is taught by an elderly Italian man who barely speaks it himself and will say like, okay, everybody, aujourd'hui nous allons lire ce livre. You're like, okay, well, this is helping nobody. Can you switch to English, Mr. LaMonica? And I used his real name, and I know this isn't going to get back to him, but he's a very nice man, and he's just the one I can remember. He's not the one that spoke like that. But but yeah, I mean, I have a complicated relationship with French. I'm not gonna lie. It's like being, again, it stems from being part of like a language minority, in the sense that like, hey, sometimes I am a customer in this situation. I don't feel like speaking French. I'm gonna say, hey, how you doing? And then you're met with resistance, or like, you're being told to speak French, and that's just not how it is. Now it's way less like that. Now it's like, I'll go in English, you go in French. We understand each other. Great. I will tap my card and I'll be on my way. You know what I mean? But it's the parts where people, because for a long time, a lot of people were like, you're here, you better learn French. And the answer to that is like, you know what? Montreal should just be left alone. A lot of people don't have those resources that I have. Not everybody, like, people move here and they get ostracized for not speaking French. That sucks. So like, if we can be more inclusive, which over the years it has been a little bit more, and there are a lot more resources for people who want to use them, I have a much better relationship with that. But at the time when I started and French cards were a lot more available to me, I would just kind of ignore them. I had a couple because I think I accidentally bought a Champions of Kamigawa booster pack in French once, and
I don't know,
and
like,
that was that.
I've gotten a lot of random like Dragonlance novels and stuff in French from my Canadian friends and stuff, because I just used to. There was a time in my life where I had literally every Dragonlance novel published in every language it had been published in, but I've gotten rid of all this. But like, it was always fun because all the other countries would keep the logo, but the French ones had to be special. So it was, instead of being Dragonlance, it was Lance Dragon. And I'm like, why would you change the logo like that?
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
I never got
the laws are goofy.
Yeah, I have some French Magic lands and stuff just because they're fun, but.
Yeah. I have a Montagne somewhere. I think it's in my Prosper deck.
Right. A Forêt. And or with like those
Forêt.
Forêt. And I don't know. It's fun. It's cool. Anyways, dude, like, this has been a blast. This is really funny. But like, do you put any of your bits and stuff online? Do people like, do you have a YouTube for comedy stuff?
So I do, but they're usually on private or unlisted, just so it's not like I'll say it's unlisted because if you submit to a festival, they want a link that they can open, but I also don't want to be like, here's everything I've got available to everybody, especially when I'm right now working on, I'm working on my special, which is, it's hard to keep talking about the special when it's like, is there any movement? Is it happening? But I am working on it. I've got like, I don't know if you see this behind me, but that's my big cue card with all the bits I'm whittling down and trying to bring down to an hour. So I don't want to put a bunch of stuff up there until I have it recorded and good to go. But
Can I
some
ask you
things get posted,
Can I ask you a comedy structure question?
Please.
Like, as a comedian, I know you guys have like the special, which is like an hour and change, then like or hour plus or whatever, and then you're like half an hour special, and then like a 15 and 10 minutes and 5 minutes and like
Uh-huh.
2.5 minutes or something. Like, how do you plan for that when you're like, oh, I've got 2.5 minutes at 3 a.m. What do you even say? Like, how do you make a joke in 2 minutes?
I'll say that there's these kind of things come at different points in your time as a comedian, because when you're starting, it's hard to do 2 minutes because you've never done 2 minutes, and you think you can do an hour because you think you're going to be so good at it. Meanwhile, if you're a comedian that does an hour every night, it is so hard to condense back down to 2 minutes. And I think so when we're talking about a special, you're talking about 60 to 75 minutes, sometimes even 90-minute long audio visual releases, right? That's like one long presentation by a comic. Then you've got like an album. Like if it's just audio, sometimes people release it as a half hour to 75 minutes, and that kind of is out there. So like, oh, I'm taping my album, I'm doing my special. What? Oh, did they get a half hour? Usually a half hour long taping that gets on, Comedy Central or whatever. All this stuff ends up being longer, like later on in your career, where you have found your voice, understood your timing, and those are the key things that'll get you to the point where you're like, I can do 2 minutes, right? Or I can do, I have to do this show. I'm being thrown on last minute. They're giving me a guestie. I'm doing 5 minutes for this guest spot. All right, I can do 5 minutes. Which one of my bits is 5 minutes long? Or I don't have bits that are shorter. Like all my longer bits are like 7 minutes long. So let's see if I can cobble together 2 minute long bits and riff for a minute. Like, let's see where that gets me. And so it becomes one of those things where, like, as you work on your comedy, you'll find out what your tools are. So like as somebody, I host a lot at my home club. I don't particularly love hosting, but I'm pretty good at it, so I do it a lot at my home
That's like
club.
the person who introduces them and also does like a little
right. You're
MCing in the middle or thing.
You're going up cold, right? You show up, you're the first guy they meet, you got a couple messages, then you start chatting to the crowd, and then you do material, get them used to making noise, get them used to joke structure, then you get the show going. And ideally, if you've done a good job and every comic is doing well, you don't have to say anything but their names in between, So but as a host, what happens is you end up finding out, like, okay, this guy's on the show. Historically, he's not very funny, but the booker wants to give him another shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this joke that's about 2 minutes long, so that when he gets off stage and the audience is kind of like, I guess we'll clap. Yeah. Then I get to go back up there and I go, hey, give it up for this guy. What about you? You were talking about this. I'll tell you what I think about that. And then my 2 minute bit that gets them back on board before introducing. So it's like you get a grab bag of your tools, right? And then you find what bits work for you and how your voice manages. Like, you love one-liner comics, right? So if I'm talking about a one-liner comic I like Mike Kaplan, well, he's got chunks of one-liners too, or Dimitri Martin, right?
Yeah.
If they were to do a 7-minute set, their list is probably going to be like 30 jokes.
Right.
Alan Strickland Williams is a comic out of LA, from by way of Florida, who begins his set. He did a late night. He said, my name is Alan Strickland Williams, and I'm going to tell you 17 jokes. And then he just does 17 jokes and gets through them in the allotted time. And it's one of the coolest things you'll see a comic do. It's so much fun. But for me, I like to ramble. I like to get goofy. I play around a little bit. I know that if I have 5 minutes, I'm going to pick a 4-minute bit and then see what happens, because I'm going to discover something new in that joke, right? I like to write from the stage. I like to be live in the moment. I like to address the room. And sometimes it'll be like, hey, I'm bailing on this joke in favor of playing around. You know what I mean? So it depends on everybody doing stand-up. Everybody's got a different thing. Everybody's got this like different way of approaching it, which is why it's such a living, breathing art form, and something that you have to put intention behind. You can always tell when a comic is up there being like, I do jokes because it lets me hang out with the people I think are cool, versus I do jokes because it's all I want, this feeling of being in front of you, the audience. Give me.
Or if
This
they're
is
like an alt
energizing.
comic, they're like, I do jokes because otherwise I'd be doing crack on the street and just like killing people or something.
Hey, now
I like alt comics a lot, but sometimes they get real dark, and you're like, bro, maybe therapy would be better.
I will consider myself an alt comic because alt comedy considers meta commentary, and that's a big part of what I do. And I think that alternative comedy is now the norm. Like Mark Maron is just so mainstream.
Dude, I love Maron. Like, and I mean, I like like that's the thing. It's like I said, I like to listen to one-liners, but I also like to listen to story comics who will tell you
20-minute long stories about a museum.
And you're just like dying the whole time. You're like, oh my god, this is so good.
I could tell you a Mark Maron story if you want. From Just for Laughs.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But let me just make the one point though. It's like, because I remember seeing him do a bit that was like a 15-minute long bit that was like hilarious. And then he had to go on like Conan O'Brien or something and cut that thing down to like 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, I see that, but like, man, that is hard to pair a 15-minute long story where I'm just rolling into like a sentence. It's like, wow, damn, that's skill.
That's definitely skill. It's also something that you realize you could do in the moment when you ever like have a great story you want to tell, and then you're like, and then while you begin to tell it, and then somebody says, I got to go in like a minute. And you're like, oh, okay. And then your mind just zooms in on all the important details. And that's exactly how Maron does it, for sure.
Yeah.
But if he had the time, he'd take all 17 minutes for 100%.
Sure. Oh,
100%. My favorite Maron story comes from Just for Laughs in Montreal. Every year up until COVID, Andy Kindler would host the Alternative Show. The Alternative Show was on at midnight at one of the grungiest venues, and every year it got weirder and weirder and sold out, and it became this cult hit show to the point where if you are going to the Just for Laughs festival, you needed to see the Alternative Show at least once, and it was on every night during the run of the festival. That's how
Andy
popular
Kindler's
this was.
Funny.
He is a nut. He's one of my favorites of all time. I love him so dearly. So Andy Kindler would host the Alternative Show. He'd do so much time in between everybody. It's truly, it's the craziest thing because you're dying laughing, but it's also a nightmare because it goes until 2:30 a.m. Even though it's supposed to go until 1, but you're laughing so hard you're sweating. Mark Maron is booked on one of them, and Andy gets up and he says, your next act is one of my favorite people in the whole world. He's one of my best oldest friends. He bought a new pair of shoes and he doesn't like them. Give it up for Mark Maron. And Mark comes out and he's clearly wearing brand new shoes right out of the box. and all he does the entire 7 minutes, he goes, thank you, Andy. Thank you. One of my best oldest friends. He already told you about the shoes, and I regret I'm walking in them, and I don't think that they'll take them back. And you know what? They don't look bad. They just don't feel. I regret. And the whole time, so he would start talking about something else. He would begin another sentence, and then he'd look down and be like, you see, I caught it out of the corner of my eye again, and I can't believe I bought these shoes. Andy, why'd you let me buy these shoes? He wasn't there, and that was. It was one of the most fun sets I've ever seen at Just for Laughs, and it's one that I that's what I'll remember Maron for me. Like, yes, WTF, so yes, Glow, yes, his specials and his books, and all of it. But that set where he just showed up, tried to do one joke, and went, these shoes. I swear to God, I regret everything.
I love that structure though. That's so funny. And like you can tell, like there's sometimes like if you give like a comic like an intro like that, they will get thrown off and just never come back. And then if they're really smart or fast, they will recover, and you will be dying and never know that it was ever off. Right? Like that's the genius.
He could have gone either way. He could have been like, "Yeah, I got the shoes. I'm not happy about it. Anyway, here we go. We're going to tell the stories that I have planned." Right? But instead, he kept getting thrown off by his own shoes. And now that the secret was out, he kept having to tell everybody every time. It was so funny. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I love comedy. I love comedy so much. Anyways, dude, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I really appreciate you having me on. Glad we got to make it happen after all this time.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody that tagged me every time Shivam asked who should be on. We know. We've been trying. It's just
look, man. It would be weird if I said that, but like, yes, we've actually been trying. But like sometimes folks will be like, "Hey, dude, you should totally have this person on." I'm like, either I've recorded it with them already. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Or B, like I've had them 7 times, but you've just never listened to my show. And I'm like, maybe someone was like, dude, you should totally have Ben Wheeler on. I'm like,
huh. I like that guy a lot. Maybe I should start a podcast with him. Would you like that too?
I've heard he's pretty good at magic. I heard he even likes it a little.
He might. I think he enjoys some aspects of. Shivam and Wheeler enjoy some aspects of magic.
Boy, that would be a very different show.
Very different show.
Oh my God, man. Anyway, dude, if folks want to find you or your stuff, where can they go?
My name is silly to spell, but it should be on your screen. It's MikeCarrozza. Find me on Instagram, Blue Sky chiefly. I am technically still on Twitter, but I don't do anything there. It's literally just to redirect people to Blue Sky and Instagram. I've got my a link tree that might be easier to work with. So linktree/Mike Carrozza. And then Am I the Bolcast? Wherever you get your podcast, you can follow us at Am I the Bolas on and Am I the Bolcast on Blue Sky again. Check out my articles.
I should make an account for my shows, but I'm too lazy.
I hear you. I mean, I trust me, I've defaulted to using my own most of the time too, and going, damn it, that's another week I messed up. It's fine. It works. It worked out. It's fine. Yeah. But otherwise, check out my stand-up dates. It's easier to just go through Instagram and check out my column, Am I the Bolas, at commandersherald.com.
Thanks, man. As always, my friends, you can find me at Shivam Bhatt on Blue Sky or really just there. And you can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold or at YouTube every Tuesday, thanks to my editor, Dan. You can also hear me on Shivam Wheeler Love Magic or on the Chronicles Dragonlance podcast, etc., etc. But remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.